Welcome to the Occupational Safety Leadership Podcast, episode number 256. In today's episode, we're going to talk about training for a new skill. So, um, first, I think I want to do a little background about what got me thinking about this. The way that we go about training a person for a new skill. You know, and of course, it applies to safety, but it also applies to um, virtually any job that's out there. When somebody gets hired, do we expect that person from day one to know everything? Or do we expect that person from day one to, enough and we want you to shadow somebody for, pick a time period, 30, 90 days, whatever the deal is, and then we deem you as competent then. But let's do a little background. So at this point, probably 10 years ago or so, I was taking the train because traffic was going to be really awful, and I sat across from a father and son, and they were going to go to a museum that day. So really got to give it to them because I don't know if they thought that the museums opened at 6 a.m., but they were on the train. They're going downtown. They're going to go see this museum. And on the way down, the father says, "Hey, why don't we look at some different ways of swimming?" And of course the son was probably 4 or 5, so the son at that point had experienced a little bit of swimming, and the father led with this whole like, well, you know how to get into the pool, you know how to swim like a little. Why don't we look at expanding and we'll look at the different strokes out there? And then they watched some videos on the side stroke and the butterfly and the different ways and why that you do each one. And most of it was that the father pulled up videos on his phone and they would watch together. Then they would kind of stop every so often and talk about it then. So I'm just a passive observer, just a couple feet away, watching this whole thing then. And it was apparent to me that the son knew a little, and the father wanted him to know more about swimming. So as I listened to more of the story, the son says, "Well, who taught who taught you how to swim?" And the father says, "Well, nobody. I went to the pool and I would watch people, and I'd say, oh, I see a person swimming like that. I'll do that same thing." And so he said, so I kind of figured it out. So he said, well, my dad didn't help me, so I just kind of figured it out by watching other people. And the son said, so you're really good at swimming? And he said, well, I'm okay. I know enough. I'm not very fast, but what I do know is that I know I can swim, that I'm going to be okay for the current. I know I'm going to be okay out there. So he kind of explained it to him in that fashion, which really got me thinking. Of course, um, as we bring people on board, and again, not just in safety, but at the different places we worked, they're coming in with a different level of understanding, training, background, all that good stuff. Some people are hired with a lot of experience, so we assume they're going to know exactly what they're doing and we'll get back to the swimming as we throw them into the deep end. But do we do the same thing with somebody who's reasonably young? Maybe a person who's only been out of high school for a year or two, and we just assume, well, they applied for the job. They obviously want this job. They obviously know what they're doing. So do we help out people? Do we just kind of almost throw them in the deep end and they're going to either swim or sink in this? Which again got me really back to thinking about the way that we train people. And I think I've in my own way, I've kind of modified it over the years, is that when I know a person is coming in, a younger person, most of the time with less experience, uh, many times they're very eager. So of course they're probably not going to say no. when something is potentially unsafe out there, because of course they're very eager, they're young, most people have to have that money. Most people, regardless of if it's safe or unsafe, um, know that no matter what, they have to have that money coming in. So that plays a factor in it. But looking at these new skills, a lot of the places that I worked are chemically intensive. So as people come in, what kind of chemical background do they have? And just like when I was growing up and learning, I had a lot of chemical background, but a lot of it was also just in books. It was theory, not quite the same thing as hands-on. You got to figure out what gloves work, what gloves don't work, and that really figured out. Hopefully, there's SOPs, things are written down. If you're shadowing somebody, you know, you're watching that person do the right thing, not just a person who happens to be, um, let's just say a old timer, and you're going to say, well, the old timer knows how to do it right, and well, that doesn't mean the old timer knows how to do it right. Maybe they figured out how to do it and not get hurt, but that doesn't always mean they figured out the right way, the correct way out there. So let's wrap up today's episode, and it's just really more of when we hire these folks, we have to figure out they're coming to the workplace. Most of the time, they're there to learn a new skill. Most people don't go to a job and say, I've done this for 30 years. I'm not willing to grow. I'm not willing to change. I'm not willing to do anything else except this one exact thing. And so we have to help them out in this. And of course, with safety, we have to help them out because they're coming on board. We don't know what kind of background they really have out there. Is it one where their previous place was very safety conscious, or was it one that the maybe the written or maybe the unwritten rule is you keep your head down, your mouth shut. Somebody else will worry about hazards and things. This is what your job is. You just do it. So let's wrap up today. I want to thank everybody for joining me today. My name is Dr. David Ayers. Thank you, and have a safe day.